Today's guest, he's a brother from another mother. He's a Navy vet. Thank you for your service in advance. He is an educator and is a teacher of life. He grew up in South Carolina, currently resides in New Jersey. My guest has traveled the world, sharing his knowledge of life, relationships. He is also the host of a very popular show on Clubhouse called Ty Banks Live. Although, in his words, he claims that he is not a dating coach and he lays no claim to being a dating expert, but he loves to talk about real life relationships and issues, and he wants to keep it positive. The topics that we could talk about, they are vast. We can talk about cheating, dating, preferences as far as relationships are concerned. We can talk about finances between a man and a woman. We can talk about open relationships or dating someone that has a child. Everything today is on the table. And if you hang around long enough, we'll talk about the four emotions that I've learned about life that I put in my book, Dating with a Full Deck, that has not only changed my life in regards to relationships, but my life and how I deal with life going forward. And I'm just curious to see how Mr. Ty Banks and those four emotional tags that I've adapted myself to, how it lends itself to Ty. So today's episode is brought to you by RMK Productions. This episode of Talking with Kevin and Son and the people you should know, we showcase people that normally don't get a voice. We show people that are making a difference in community. Our mission is very simple. We want to uplift everyone through the power of our voice, share our stories and experiences, perspectives, using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple. Hope, helping other people every day. Without no further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Ty Banks live on Talking with Kevin and Son. How you doing, brother Ty?
I'm doing all right. I appreciate the invite to the show and thank you for the kind words.
No problem. These words are sincere. I've been trying to get you on the show for a long time. I will tell you, in the way that I describe your show on Clubhouse, you are the original fire starter. You put out a little bit of a conversation to a bunch of people, 40, 50, sometimes 100 people at a time, about issues that are sensitive to some of us and others that just doesn't make sense. And you sit back and just see what comes back to you. And that's the reason why I had you on the show, because you make a lot of sense, especially when you end the show. And I wanted to talk about how your show is formatted, talk about how you come up with some of the things, and then kind of throw out some things to give our guests some insight on the mindset of a man versus dealing with relationship. So, Ty, if you don't mind, I like our audience to get a chance to know you because that's what we're about. People you should know. Um, you grew up South Carolina, mom and dad in the house, out of the house. But I also know there's something I give you big props for because people, when they look at us as men, that's the reason why I started my show the way it is that they don't believe that we take care of our own children. You're raising a 7-year-old son, and I'm very proud of you for being a positive role model in your life. Um, who are the influences on you, not only as a man, but a human being as you were growing up? Tell us your story.
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in New Jersey, mother and father. My father was in the Navy, so we moved, around a little bit. I lived in mostly my life New Jersey, where I currently live, in South Carolina. Um, I would say my biggest influences was my father. My father is still active in my life. I'm 39. He's been active in my life since, I can remember, since a child. My uncles, I have uncles on my mother's. I have a couple of uncles on my mother's side, uncle on my father's side. They're very influential, and I have some mentors. He's a pastor, I believe, in his church in North Carolina. I met him through work. I work for an electric company. He was an employee for the company. His name is James Baker. He also has a platform. So I always look at positive men that look like me and you.
All right. Now, I want to ask this question because this is a conversation I struggle with that I have often, and sometimes it's not received. Is it important, not only as a Black man, but as a man in general, that you be present in your children's life, no matter the relationship with the mother, the wife, or the ex? Is it important and why?
I think it's very important because no matter if you and the ex-wife, maybe you guys don't get along, maybe the ex-girlfriend if you were unmarried, still you separated from the mother, but you never separate from your child. So I think it's very important that you still remain in the child's life.
So do you agree that the first positive or negative example of what being a man is through the eyes of your child looking at the man that's currently in his life?
Yes.
All right. Um, let's talk about relationships because you have a lot of input on that. In your words, describe what a relationship is.
I would say relationship is a bond and maybe a situation like I see various relationships, statuses, relationship structures now. I see people have open relationships. I see have people have monogamous, people have polyamory, people have polygamy relationships. But I would say a positive, relationship is between, two people, which could be, man and woman, woman and man, man and man, woman and woman. I accept on my platform, I accept all, relationship statuses.
Let's talk about your platform. Um, how did you come up with the Ty Banks live show? What was your motivation for that? Tell us a little bit about the show.
I actually watched some YouTubers. I've watched a couple of people on some other various platforms, including you mentioned Clubhouse, Instagram, TikTok, all platforms. I'm on all platforms as Ty Banks Live. And sometimes they're pushing one agenda that may not fit everyone. Like if there's a podcaster or an influencer that is, promotes open relationships, that might not, reach or may not be the best fit for somebody that's monogamous. And if there's a podcaster that maybe is heterosexual, some stuff maybe he or she promotes may not, benefit, may not, which it can, may not promote to or reach out to people that are, maybe homosexual, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And
Yeah.
please, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to make sure that when you're listening to this show, do not push that cancel culture button because what we're trying to do, we're trying to have an open, honest conversation and create a conversation that is inclusive of all. So, in the event that you find a word or a statement or a question that you have an issue with, write us a note. Let us explain ourselves and let's create a conversation. I will repeat this at the end of the show. My grandfather always said that education is not designed to make you comfortable, it's designed to make you think. And I think that the more times we think about where we are and where we're at this moment, the better the conversation. Now, I'm going to spin the wheel way back because we all learned relationships from someone. Most of us, a lot of us have children that are age. I know me, I had a double standard. It was different from my boys versus my daughters. A lot more protective over my daughters, but I was super protective over my sons when it came to young women in their life. When is it a good time to have a conversation with your children, or what do you think is a good time to have the conversation about the structure of a relationship, or the conversation of when they should be ready to create a dating relationship?
I would say for my son, I would say as early as possible. But of course, you don't want to introduce things that they may not be interested in, which could be whatever. I think in some situations where, you say you're in grade school and you have a grade school crush at the, park or whatever, I always, promote to boys to be kind. I always promote to young girls. Maybe you could be kind also. But I think there's, small things like it is a double standard, I would say. However, like my father taught me, women shouldn't take out the trash. So men should be on the outside, walking on the sidewalk or something like that. Ladies first. Say I remember we were at the park and my son, he was in the park and there was a little girl. She wanted to, go on the slide. So I said, hey, I mentioned my son. I said, let her go first because she's a girl. Teach those, structures into him early. So stuff like that. That's being a polite, being a gentleman, as most would call it.
So chivalry in your house is not dead.
Never.
All right, that's good because I know in Pennsylvania, and we're both on the East Coast, is
Yes.
that um, right now we have the progressive people that if you open the door, you get the comment, and I know the way that I feel is that I can open the door for myself. Um, if you put someone in front of you, it's like you don't have to do that. I can stand on my own. Does
Yeah.
that complicate the pool as far as the mindset of someone like you teaching your children to be a gentleman and being kind when kindness is not accepted or appreciated by some?
I would say doing the right thing in my opinion, being courteous and being a gentleman is doing the right thing. So I will always promote people to do the right thing, you know. And I think some women, will appreciate that if you hold a door for her. However, there's going to be some that say, I could hold my own door, but say, hey, I'm a gentleman. I'm gonna, hold a door for you. I've had that I think maybe once in my life, and I'm a man, in my late 30s, where a woman said I could, hold my own door. But I said, well, today I'm just gonna be a gentleman and I'll hold your door. I think some people may take that as extreme and they may want to combat or argue or something like that. But I think being a gentleman is still, popular.
Yeah, I was always taught, treat someone the way that you wanted to be treated. And
Exactly.
my grandmother set a standard, says if a lady does not allow you to open the door or pull out a chair for her or whatever, should leave her where she stands because she has not been taught how to be a lady. So I don't know how that is going to be received by the general population. But when you grow up with a Southern upbringing, I always say that, it's easier to say thank you, no matter what your personal opinion is, because someone's doing something nice for you. We live in a society today that we have a double standard, not only as men, but there's a double standard for women. I know when I did the research for my book, I interviewed over 1,500 people, both male and females, partners, singles, people that were in transition for whatever life was bringing them, and I discovered a lot. I I I figured my conclusion that men were an endangered species, both black men, white men, or whatever the case may be. You cannot give a woman a compliment or say that she looks nice when she spent all of her time dressing up and whatever, and not have it perceived to be hit on or she's being harassed, or if it's in the workplace, it could cost you your career. What is
Yeah.
your feelings on just having general conversations or even creating an atmosphere that a compliment is not an open invitation to a weekend retreat away? It's just simple compliment. How do we re-educate people to just allow someone to be nice to them?
I always promote, being courteous and being a gentleman is not in advance. However, we know we will always come into contact, with beautiful women. We'll always come in contact with beautiful people. But me holding a door for a woman is not me, trying to spend a weekend with her. I'm not gonna hold the door and, make, a sexual gesture or sexual comment. Me holding a door for her or maybe helping. I remember, or holding the door for her. I remember it was one time I was at a Home Depot and there was a young lady. She was attractive, and I was driving and I saw her with a big bag of salt because I live in the Northeast, like you mentioned before. And I got out the car. I said, "Hey, ma'am, no advance or anything. Would you, like help?" Actually, I didn't even say no advance. I just say, "Hey, would you like any help?" And she said, "Yes, actually, I would." And I got out the car. I parked my car, safely. And I got out the car and I picked up the sand, the salt, excuse me, and I placed it in her vehicle. And she tried to offer me a tip, and I said, no, chivalry isn't dead. I saw you, I don't, I don't. It doesn't matter her, relationship status. But I saw her with that, and I actually felt the need to help her because that could. I think as it. What if that's my mother or cousin? I don't have any daughters. I don't have a sister. But what if that's my mother or cousin or aunt? So that's what I thought when I did it.
All right. Before we get into the meat of, what everyone wants to talk about in here, I want to ask you this. All right. Dating apps have been extremely popular. We no longer create relationships on chance meetings. We window shop. Everyone's swiping to the right, swiping to the left. Um, I'm exposed to people 24/7. I've been in this business of fitness and studying human behavior for over 40 years. Has dating apps hindered the skill of dating and romancing a person, both male and female, or has dating apps been the ties that bind to having the ideal relationship? How do you feel about dating apps?
I actually been a part of dating apps. I think that you have to be realistic on a dating app. I think what happens is a lot of people may get a lot of matches and then they just say, well, I'm gonna, or I've heard some situations where somebody is on multiple dating apps. And if they really want a genuine connection, sometimes if you get, 10 matches on one site, 7 matches on one site, 13 matches on another site, you have all of these matches, but you're not making, connection. You're communicating with somebody, but then you forget about to communicate with this person. Then you got to communicate with all these people. So I personally, if I'm not a dating expert, I'm not a dating coach, but I always promote people to, if you're gonna join a dating app, stick to one dating app and see how it goes for that month. And if you don't find somebody you connect with, then maybe try a dating app. So I say one dating app at a time, one dating app at a time. However, I do feel you could find a genuine connection. I actually met somebody I got in a relationship on a dating app once. Me and her dated for a long period of time. It actually didn't lead to a marriage, but we had a very healthy, happy relationship. Um, some people say all dating apps are no good because of people they have complaints just like in real life. If you meet somebody at a happy hour, people will say people are not consistent. I think you'll have that in real life. You'll have that. Not saying dating apps is not real life. You would have that if you met somebody at a lounge or at a bar or wherever or at Home Depot or at Walmart. But if you're consistent with people, or say you meet 2 or 3 people that match with you, if you're consistent with that people, I think a dating app can work.
Right. I want to ask you this question because I know in the Black culture, we hear this conversation, high value men. I think it's a standard when I listen to this conversation. I've heard this on your show and I've sat back and I listened I've learned in some things that I shook my head about is that when women are asking for a high valued man, is that saying more about the woman that's looking for more in a man or less about the woman looking for more in her life when she's not bringing more to that life? And if a man were to say he's looking for a high value woman, how do you think women are perceiving that from your experience from your show?
From doing my show, I've seen women that are successful, quote unquote successful in their careers, or they maybe have degrees, maybe they have a high salary people, and they say, hey, I want somebody to match me. Then I've met women that say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to be a provider, which I think both could be, I think you could meet a woman that she does successful in her career and she has her own money or success or whatever, and you can still be a provider. But I think you have to get to know that person because there's some people that may be willing to be a homemaker and he fits, he pays the bills, she's making the house a home. And I think there's some people that wants him to do everything. He's gonna pay, pay the bills, come home, do stuff in the house and just take care of her while she sits back. But I think you just have to get to know that person to know to use your own discernment to what you want, because there's some people that there's some men that may, want to be the sole provider and the woman, does nothing but maybe cook and clean. And there's some, guys, he's a provider and he meets a woman. So, well, she's doing this, she could, help with something, just in case maybe one day that, with sickness or, career change or something like that, that maybe she could, hold the financials down in the household for a period of time.
When when in a relationship, before committing to a relationship, is there a protocol? If I ask you out, am I expected to pay? If you ask me out as a female to a man, should I expect you to pay? I don't know the answer to this. What's the protocol in the dating world? I'm a lot older than you right now.
Yeah.
I was taught that the asker was always the payee. And as a man, it was always nice for a woman to volunteer to pay, but I never expected her to pay if I accepted a date. But my parents always told me if the woman was asking you out, she should at least offer the pay. Now, you're much younger than I am. How does that work in your culture, in your realm of being 30 something and dating? A woman asks you out.
Woman, this has happened before. I've had women that asked me out and she refused to let me pay, and I've had women that suggested we go out and we do go out, and I just pay the bill and she keeps quiet or she appreciates the gesture. I always go back to being a gentleman isn't new. I tend to be the asker or invite a woman out. So it's rarely a situation where a woman pays for a date that me and her go on, unless we're like, I've paid 2 or 3 dates before, and then she said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna treat you today." You get what I'm saying?
All right, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Um, Question. I never know this answer, and I'm a victim of just participating. When do you know you're in a relationship? Is there a time frame of when you've been dating, and when do you decide on being um, exclusive in the relationship?
Um, I know some people say, well, you'll know, on the first date. I don't think so. I think that once you've dated, maybe spent time, you know, I would say private time together. Not doesn't have to necessarily include, intimacy. I think after a period of time, which you both agree on, the man and woman or whatever, you know, I'm gonna just speak on men and women because I date women, but I would say we would have a conversation within a certain period. Hey, I really like the way this is going. Would you like to date exclusive or would you like to be in a relationship? So it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year. It just really depends on the couple.
So it depends on emotionally how you connect with that person. Do you actually tell the person you're in a committed relationship? And the reason why I ask this is because I've had people that automatically assume they're in a committed relationship. And once the relationship became an expectation of seeing me this weekend and seeing you and spending time and sharing friends, all of a sudden there's a partner that got cold feet and says, I don't want to be in an exclusive relationship. Um, so I'm
I oh sorry.
No, I was basically saying is that these conversations, when should you have these conversations about where you are at in the mindset of a relationship or dating right now?
I personally think you should have that conversation. Maybe start having that conversation after the third date or the third meeting. Where you stand. I per se, well, I do multi-date, but I would date the maximum 2 women at a time. I'm not gonna date 5, 6 women. That's not me personally. I don't have time for that. With my career, with my raising my son. Um, so I would have that conversation by the third date. Where if I wanted to be exclusive with her, if I want to get more, collect more data, spend more time with her before I commit to being exclusive or being in a relationship. So I would say by the third date you should know.
Um,
usually.
since you said that you have, because you're on these dating apps, that you have multiple people, you're a single father with a child. I have two parts of this question. Do
Sure.
you each suitor that you are seeing someone else, and or do you just go ahead and continue to date until you decide that one of them is going to be exclusive? How does that work?
I
Or how?
would only I would only volunteer the information if it's asked, because sometimes that would just be like a turn off for somebody. Like, say I'm enjoying a date or join a conversation with a woman, I'm not gonna just say, "Hey, well, I'm dating, this other woman. How do you feel about that?" If she asked me, say, because sometimes women could initiate the conversation, saying, well, I'm liking, I like your vibe. I like the time we spend together. Or, what do you think about us being exclusive? This has happened to me before. And then that's the situation where I say, well, I have another situation. I need to maybe tell this person that I'm going to be exclusive with you. And there was one time where a woman, she did want to be exclusive with me, but I was multi-dating at the time, and I liked the other woman a little bit more. So I would say, well, um, I can't be exclusive with you right now. I think being honest goes a long way.
But the way that you preface it, honesty came in when you were asked to be honest, but it wasn't volunteered. Is there a value to volunteering this conversation or the conversation being prompted?
For me, like I would always go to not I wouldn't say don't ask, don't tell, but I would say, if I'm enjoying time with her, I don't bring up, other women or other dating stuff unless it's being asked.
All right. And like I said, there's no right or wrong.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. And the other thing is, because you are a single father, I mean, after this video goes out, everyone's going to know that you are a single father. And honesty is part of the program, both given and received. Is there a good time, or is there a time frame when you tell someone that you have a child, and that child is important to you? And what's the time frame of when that person can actually get a chance to meet your child, or should you not have them meet at all?
I would tell a woman as soon as that presents. It could be the first conversation, it could be before the first date. Because some women, especially if they don't have children, they may not want to date a single father, which that is their choice. I could never bash someone for doing that. There was a period of time with me where I wouldn't want to date a single mother. Um, I don't think it's a bad thing that people don't want to date a single father or date a single mother. It's just their preference. And dating, you choose, who you're gonna date, who you'll be in a relationship with. But as far as meeting my child, I would say once we're exclusively in a relationship, or exclusively dating, or once we're in a relationship. I think that's the safest bet.
All right. Um, tough conversations in a relationship. What's the best way to say that I'm just not into you? Do you just ghost someone? What I mean by ghost, this is something I learned from my kids. They just stop returning phone calls, no texts. They avoid them in the malls or whatever the case may be. Or do you call them up and just say, I'm not feeling it? What's the best way to do it?
I don't think someone should be ghosted, especially if they're showing you respect, especially if they're a courteous person. I would like have a conversation sometimes, say, hey, I'm just I don't see us in a relationship, which I've had that conversation with somebody before, where I say I don't see us in a relationship going forward. And if there's a reason that is not disrespectful to them, I'll explain what the reason is. Um, I think I think a mature thing to do is tell them that. I don't really like ghosting unless that person maybe was in a disrespectful, like say we were like, anything could happen. Like I've there's some situations where I've heard people on my show, I've experienced it where something be going well, but this woman is disrespectful. I may ghost her that because some people may not even warrant a conversation, or if you present that conversation, the conversation may not go well. if you get what I'm saying. Like it would maybe, disrespect or an argument or drama. And one thing I don't do is drama because I think, life should dating and life and relationship should bring you happiness, not arguments and drama.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, my guest is Mr. Ty Banks. He is the show host of Ty Banks Live, as he can see his shirt. Ty, if people want to have further conversations with you, or tune into your show, or hit you up on Instagram or any of your social media, or get any of your swag, or be a guest on your show, how do they get in touch with you?
They could check me out on Instagram. The name is Ty Banks Live. I'm on Twitter, which is now called X, Ty Banks Live, Threads, Ty Banks Live. I have TikTok, Ty Banks Live. I have an email, Washington T 783 at gmail.com. And YouTube, I have Ty Banks Live. I haven't really started YouTube yet, but I'm gonna move some of the platform. And you also mentioned Clubhouse. I'm on Clubhouse as Ty Banks Live, so that's where you guys can reach me. And I'm looking for new guests, so I appreciate the invitation to your show. Everybody that tuned in, you know, I always want to promote positive conversation about relationship. We may not always agree, and I always say on my show, if you meet somebody on the show that you totally disagree with them, that's just information. That's You shouldn't bash that person. That's just the way they date. You just know for yourself that you just don't date that person.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have my good friend, brother from another mother, East Coast boy. He's a single father. He is the show host of Ty Banks Live. We are talking man to man about relationships. Just a note, this is my disclaimer. We're not claiming to be an expert on dating,
No.
claiming to be an expert on relationships. This is man to man having a conversation. And normally the conversations that's normally not shared with anyone else other than the people on live tank Ty Banks show. I will tell you, as I called him, as when I first started listening to him, he is the original fire starter. He brings up a conversation and he allows to see where it lands, where the kindles land, and where all the little fires start. And people have very strong opinions about their finances. They have their very strong opinions about their relationships. They have their very strong opinion about the roles of man versus woman. But listen to this. It's all their opinions. And we're all are limited by our options. And the more options we have, the more complicated our life gets until we streamline our desires and our goals and what we want most in life and whatever. And the reason why I wrote my book is because when I was reintroduced to the dating world, I had no clue. So, Ty, I'm going to ask you, for all the men that have gone through hardship and the women that are going through a major breakup and are looking for a different social life at a different level, is what's the proper way for a man to ask a woman out if he's interested? And if a woman's interested in a man, is it okay for her to ask that man out?
Yeah, it's funny. We just had this conversation recently on one of my shows about women, asking men out or showing that they're interested. I think a woman can ask a man out. I think a woman should know the man, let the man know she's interested. Men, we've always been, for the majority, we've always been the pursuers. The worst thing a woman could do is say no. If you're approaching her with respect, dignity, not disrespecting her, being, charming or whatever. If she's not interested, it's okay. If she's interested, it's an amazing thing. You know what I mean? Um, the worst thing she could do is say no. Understand what I'm saying? She might be interested in you. She might be sitting there waiting for you to ask her out on a date. So I would never tell men to, not pursue a woman that they're interested in.
What about a woman asking a man out?
I think that, I think in the times now, women are career women, women are, doing their thing. I've seen it where women actually ask men out, on dates and stuff like that, which I respect. If a woman, is interested, she should let it be known. Sometimes the guys, with Me Too movements, with certain things on social media where guys are shamed for, pursuing women for I still don't get that. You know, if he approaches a respect, you know, I don't see an issue with a man asking a woman out. But I definitely think a woman, if she's interested, she could pursue a man and ask him out.
All right. Um, Another question. What's important? I'm only talking about in dating. I'm not talking about in a healthy relationship where you're man and wife. Um, so in dating, that's a whole different conversation. And there's a whole different mindset once you are involved in a committed relationship. So this may be a great area with this conversation. Which is more important in dating? Your personal happiness or your sex life?
I would say personal happiness. Because you could have a great sex life, but you could be dating a toxic person. You could be having a great sex life and you're dating a person that, you don't really have a future with or anything. So I would just say personal happiness, because if you have personal happiness, I think that elevates your sex life with that person.
All right, I'm going to give you a scenario. This is a true scenario in my life. High value woman, socialite, here um, in this area. I won't bring up her name. Has grown up affluent all of her life. Has been abandoned by the male of her choice, the father of her children. Her whole social circle was surrounded by the life that she had dreamt of and created, and all of a sudden it came crashing down. Now, within her own social circle, it is said that this is what I've learned, that a very wealthy man will go to the diner and marry the waitress, all right, and give her the life of her dreams. But a very wealthy woman, and I don't know how this is true, this is just conversation, backyard conversation amongst friends and people that I know, that a very wealthy woman will only marry within her social circle, but she will date for sport within her own emotional attachments. So it means that she will not date someone that's poor. Now, the conversation, this person, beautiful person, and she is true to her heart. She would go to Home Depot every single Sunday and she would buy random gifts and get into one person's line because there was a person that she enjoyed the conversation, she was attracted to, but he was not a part of her social circle. And in conversations, she would talk about, how he is the guy of her dreams, but he's just not making enough money. Is the mindset of that when I talk about your own personal happiness versus what's expected of you, what you think expected of you in your social circle? Do you sacrifice social standings over love?
See, I think I had a recent show about prenuptial agreements. And what you said does make a lot of sense. There'll be a high value man or quote unquote very successful man. He'll marry a waitress, but some women, they're scared. We're hearing women, millionaires or six-figure earners or very successful in their careers. Sometimes they're paying alimony and stuff like that. So if you get in a situation like that where somebody, because people change over time, I think you should, if that person makes you put a smile on your face, that person brings joy to you. And sometimes, like I could think of some careers, I'm not going to say name, that, do good for the community, do good for our communities, but they don't net a lot of money. That doesn't mean that that person in that career or field is not a good person. So I would just say once it gets to that point where if you guys are going to get married, then you consider yourself a prenuptial agreement or postnuptial agreement. So I think she should pursue, the guy that she desires.
Now, since you brought up prenup, I was going to bring that up because I know there's going to be a conversation and chatter in the background. Um, Prenup for a man to a woman versus a woman to a man, does that say that you are going into a relationship with an out, or what does that say?
I had, like I said in my previous show on Ty Banks Live, a prenup isn't preparing for divorce. A prenup is protecting you in case of a divorce. Like I said, you could have a great relationship, great engagement, and then 5 years from now, maybe there's infidelity, maybe people change. Because I'm not, I don't think I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, Kevin. I don't think you're the same person you were 5 years ago. There may be a woman that maybe come in somebody's life that she changes after a certain period of time. And if you look at the stats, I think I did a research that a lot of these divorces take place within 3 to 5 years of the marriage. So, I don't think I think a prenup is actually good. It could protect both people. It could be something that both of you put in place, in case of a divorce. Not saying you're preparing for a divorce, just in case. You know what I mean?
All right. There are always, I'm not going to actually say the word because I know people are going to hang on that, but sometimes relationships has discrepancies in there, emotional or moral discrepancies. Everyone has a different love language. Not understanding one person's love language and not understanding being true to yours, like you said, our emotions and our level of expertise when it comes to relationships happens in phases. Do you think, or is it possible that a indiscretion or a moral or immoral act in a relationship, is it the end of that relationship, or is it something that can be overcome?
On that, I would say respect goes a long way. I know we didn't discuss this, but I think any domestic situations should result into that relationship ending. I don't think anybody should be getting beat or police should be called. Like I said, I think main thing, your relationship should bring happiness. It shouldn't bring struggle, confusion, drama, arguments, and stuff like that. Your relationship should be bringing you happiness.
All right, I think that was an excellent answer. So when I wrote my book, Dating with the Full Deck, all right, I had no idea how to date. It was 22 years into a marriage with kids. I had a great relationship, I thought, but I was lost at some point. Without going into details, and it's not necessary for everyone to know that. It's just the 22 years, great relationship. It ended and didn't end up on the best terms. So what I've learned is that we're all at a different place where we stand right now. And whatever choices we've made, we have to take ownership. So when I speak about emotions that are game changers or life changers, it also affects um, your personal dating relationships. So, my four um, emotions, I heard Jim Rohn, he's a motivational speaker, say this, and he says, in it is life changing. The first thing is discuss. All right. And what I mean by discuss and what I understand, and this is what my mother has told me when I have turned to her for relationship advice. She asked me what was my number. I had no idea what she was saying. She says, "What is your number? How many times do you have to revisit something before enough is going to be enough?" How do you feel about discuss?
Um, Here's a great question. I would say you have these conversation and communication is key in a relationship. If you don't have that conversation and these communication and positive conversation, I don't think you'll have a relationship.
Now, do you have a number? Do you have forgiveness in your heart to say, well, everyone's capable of making mistakes? What is your number? Because I don't like to repeat anything twice. What is your number?
I think it goes as levels of what happens. I think public disrespect, public embarrassment. It could be that one time where it's unforgiving. It could be a situation, something petty as a woman maybe if she's not that neat. You know what I mean? I think if you tell her a couple of times and she's still not getting it, maybe you have to have sit down a conversation. Maybe tell her 2, 3 times. You know, maybe you're not that neat. That could be a situation where you want to end that relationship. But I would say, public disrespect, public embarrassment. It could be one time. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Every single day, each and every last one of us, we have a battle in our head to say where we need to be, what we want, and what we want most. So desire is point two. The battles that goes within our head. We see a person a certain way, especially with men. We have a tendency that we hang on to what we had 10 years ago and not look at what we have right now. Women happen to be able to function on a different level than the mindset of a man. So they are always morphing into something else. What about desires? Do we have conversations or true conversations about desires when we're in a relationship or expectations, or do we suppress them in order to maintain status quo in the relationship?
I think a lot of times people may let their desires or their infatuation with somebody ignore red flags or ignore stuff. But I think you should desire your person. I think you should have conversations like you mentioned before. You know, conversations. You know, attractions, things like that. It should come natural.
Yeah, the reason why I bring this up is because, like I said, I'm a lot older than you, and I've seen people that, you know, the Mr. Mrs., and I heard some comedians say that, when we first started, I had a six pack, my wife had a flat stomach, and whatever, 30 years later, you know, her stomach lays over to the side and whatever. He says, my six pack is now a pony keg, but I still love my woman the same way. Where that I've been in the health and fitness industry. It's like a shopping cart towards what we think in our mind is physically perfect, and everyone's trying to get that perfect body, but some people just don't do it. But then again, I'll see people that are mismatched. A woman that is what in our mind is totally fit, and another man that is struggling with his weight issues. But the other thing when we talk about desires is that even though that we may be committed by what we've been taught about relationships, we have things that go in the back of our mind that we desire. Intimacy at certain levels. Some people are just comfortable with just being intimate, and other people have things that's playing in the back of their mind that they would be ashamed to talk about. And the reason why I say that is because I have a friend in Atlanta that has a talk show that basically all she talks about is men's fetish. And at the end of the show, the men finally comes clean, and she's got a system. She asks five questions, five different ways. And at the end of it, they disclose all the kinky little things that they're into. And they says, I hope you're not recording this. And her response at every show is, this is an effing podcast. What do you think I'm going to do? When we have these desires or these unmentionable conversations, or we feel too ashamed to say that this is what we are into and what we want, is it wrong not to tell your partner? Or should you tell your partner? And if your partner has a conversation that is not how you brought up, but you're in that relationship and your partner, do you have a responsibility to own that conversation and be submissive to your partner and their desires? Or how do you think someone should respond when their partner opens up to them about a conversation that's a little bit uncomfortable about their own personal desires?
I think that's the number one person you should be, comfortable or open up to tell your desires. If you're not telling your partner what your fetishes is or what your kinks is or what you desire, then who can you tell? So I think in that situation, it to me, I think it would bother me if I was with a woman and she would be more okay with telling you or telling one of my co-hosts, her sexual fantasies rather than telling me. I think that's a problem in itself.
What's the value on respecting your partner?
That should be number one on the chart. If you don't have respect, I don't think you have a relationship.
All right. This is my last one. I always talk about resolve. The power, you have the power over your own emotions to say what you mean and mean what you say. Um, Resolve is, in my mind, is sometimes letting go of some of the things that's been taught to you, some of the things that um, hold you back from going forward. We all have these, and then I know sometimes people get a little heavy when I guess they call them mommy and daddy issues, or relationships that were bad that keeps coming up in every other conversation is every time you do something good, the conversation about what someone else did to them and the reason why they don't feel comfortable going forward is because they're so afraid that you're going to break their heart. How do you deal with resolve?
Um, at some point you have to, be well, I think you should always be honest, but at sometimes you may have to make decisions that not everybody's gonna like. But I think sometimes you have to that decision is gonna be best for you and the other person.
All right. Now, this is a fun question. Is it better? This is just a man's question. Is it better to date someone that's a 10 that gives you nothing more than just being with someone that is a 10? Or is it better to date someone and be emotionally connected with someone that is a 5 or 6 that checks off all the boxes as a man?
So as a man, I would say, if you date somebody that's quote unquote a 5 or a 6, maybe in looks and body or something like that, if they check all the other boxes, emotionally, somebody that truly cares about you, they're gonna become a 10. Because some women are very attractive, but they're beautiful, but they're only bad for you. You get what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Toxic, it's like drinking cheap wine. The end result is all the same, but just the day after, you don't feel the same.
Exactly.
Yeah, the good stuff. Something I've had a lot of fun. I hope that our listeners were entertained. We don't have the right answer, the final answer. Only you, the listener, in your own personal situation, can come up with the final answer. I think everything about life, our professions, our careers, our relationships, where we travel, what we experience is all by choice and chance and the actions that follow. You're responsible for every decision. Your happiness is totally predicated based on the choices you make, not of what someone else thinks you should be doing. And I hope we have not influenced you about making a decision that you may regret tomorrow, or we hope that we have not said something that offended you. But hopefully you were entertained and you enjoyed the conversation. We'd love to hear your feedback. Now, my friend, my brother, and to your son, he's got a great dad that loves him. I hope he looks back on this and says, I've got a dad that at least set the bar kind of high because I know he's going to be an overachiever. And I know you are doing well in your space. Last question. Last question. The Phillies going to win the World Series?
Uh, and this is the funny thing. I'm a diehard Eagles fan, but I am a Yankees fan, so I don't have a dog in the fight in the baseball right now.
A long time before your dog even gets in the stadium. You
Yeah,
know,
that's very true.
you
We got
you
to
have
do a lot of work here in the Bronx.
yeah. I mean, I'm a Browns fan, so I know your pain. I cheer for the hometown, so I'm excited about the Phillies. I'm excited about the Eagles. I pray for the 76ers. Thank God we got a soccer team that is killing it here. Um, we've got a lot of good people. I question the city. I'm not from here. When they say brotherly love, but I hope everyone that listens to the show, you find love in your heart. You find compassion. Quit turning to your friends for advice when you're struggling with the answers that you have in your own heart. And you got to know what you can live with and what you can't live without. And like my man Ty says, if you're in a situation that you're being emotionally or physically abused, you have every right to go ahead and exit that situation. But if you have a
Definitely.
relationship fighting for, the reason why the divorce rate is so high, this is only my personal opinion, is because we forgot how to fight for a good relationship. Our grandparents and our aunts and uncles from days past, the reason why they stayed in relationships for 50 or 60 years, not because they settled, is because they were able to justify making that relationship work. And all the deal breakers that we have out there, and I will tell you, I'm an author of a book called Dating with the Full Deck. The reason why people write those books and whatever, because people buy those books, is for profit. The reason why we have a conversation, because we think we have a conversation that's going to be important to at least 1%. The reason why I did this show It's because we have people that are looking for answers, especially guys, because we suck at relationships. You know, your
Sometimes.
expect of all of us are just way too high. But if you find a good man and he's partnered with the right woman, everything can work. If there's potential for that relationship to be strong, it can work and you can overcome probably the worst situation if you own up to what you're responsible for and you're compassionate and you hear your partner's plea for help for a better relationship. That's all it is. At the end of the day, what do we all want? Happiness. But it's your choice to pick the lane that you want to be in. So, Ty, 90% of my guests that come on the show, I always ask this question because I'm not looking for big numbers in my show. I can care less on how many people follow me or how many people subscribe. I enjoy the 10,000 people that listen to my podcast. I enjoy and respect the almost 5,000 people that subscribe and follow. So I hope that if you are a person of high call to action or a higher call to action, I always say the people that follow and subscribe are not the people that drive by an accident. My people are like my social circle. They stop to help. I'm probably the only podcaster that I know of. And please, if someone else is doing it, correct me. I'd like to have you on your show to talk about how this has changed the life of other people. But I've had 4 people that have answered this question and 4 people that have listened to this show that have made this one person's dream, at least one person's dream, come true. So, Ty, when I ask you, if you had one ask, that you can put out into the metaverse, the universe, or wherever someone's labeling it today, what would that ask be?
I would just say, let's bring love back. Let's not compete with everybody. Let's not, compare relationships. Just love each other, be kind to each other. We went through the pandemic for those 2.5, 3 years. Be kind to each other. That's all I ask.
And my hashtag is find 1,000 reasons to be kind. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what Brother Ty Banks said? This is Ty Banks live on Talking with Kevin and Son and the people you should know. He asks you to be kind to someone. Doesn't take a lot of energy to say good morning, hello, or open the door, or pull out a chair for someone. It doesn't take a lot to pull over the side of the road to help someone that's stranded there in order to change a tire. It doesn't take a lot for someone that's struggling a little bit to give them a dime when they're asking for $1 and all you have is a nickel. All right. It doesn't take a lot of you. I think if we have more kindness in the world, we'll bring more people together. And thank you, Ty, for putting that out there. To my listeners or to our listeners, I want to thank you for riding with us, staying with us. If you like what you've heard, go to RMK Productions and Network on YouTube and subscribe and follow. Like I said, high call to action. If you would like to be a guest, and Ty, I would like to have you come back, go to
Sure,
info.
definitely. I would like to do this again.
All right, go to info@rmkproductions.org, fill out the information, and we'll get back to you. And we'd love to have you come on. And especially if you know someone that is a superstar in your community, your neighborhood, that their story needs to be told. We're all about people that you should know. I'm not looking for movie stars or, celebrities or whatever. I'm looking for people that are giving back to the community, that are adding value to someone else. And last, you want everyone to keep a lookout for my new book. The world's just not ready for you. All right. It's a new book that's being released on Amazon. It's all about you and it's for you. So with that said, Ty, like I said, I thank you. Is there anything that you want to leave with our guests or as a takeaway to what you do, what this show has brought to you? If you want to go ahead and take the mic right now, anything that you want to say to the listeners out there?
I just want to thank you personally for inviting me to the show. Just share his live, share his platform to other people. Like I'm like you, like I like to promote other people. Um, I think sometimes you can learn from other people. You could check me out on all platforms, and if you can share the content that we take time out to people that can listen to that and relate to it, and maybe learn something from it.
All right, Ty, and thank you. You are always welcome back. We can talk about any subject. Hopefully, the New York team ever makes it to World Series. We can talk a little. The Browns on there. I'll definitely bring you back, and we talk about that. I love the Cleveland Browns.
Definitely.
And again, to our listeners, I'm going to thank you 1,000 times over. And if you can adapt the hashtag, find 1,000 reasons to with the number two to be kind to someone, you'll be surprised that how you can make someone else's day because sometimes we don't know what other people are going through. My grandfather always said, when you get to a point in life that you can help someone else, it is your duty to do so. Reach one, teach one. And with that said, we're out. We'll fade to black. Thank you, Ty Banks.